welcome to the dark side of YouTube. I am Ghost, your curator for this evening. Tonight we are going to be talking about the paranormal and my experiences with said paranormal that kind of got me into this field of study and made me want to create this YouTube channel. To give some backstory, I was 12 years old and witnessed my father having a fatal heart attack and seen him pass away. While he passed, my family ended up homeless and lost. But my mother applied for some housing, and through the bad parts, we were approved for a unnamed company to build us a house, which was super awesome for them to do. Of course, the house would be for my mother and my siblings. We were a grieving family, and if you understand when a family is grieving, then there is a possibility that what we went through might have invited some unwanted guest or unwanted attention. But to move forward to the house, the house is finally made, done, finished. We helped build it. We placed many man-hours. My mom placed many man-hours into this. And we moved into this house that was large enough for all of my siblings, almost all of them, to have their own rooms. And we were finally on the mend. No longer homeless. We were no longer grieving as heavily as we were, but it was still affecting most of us on a daily basis. The first night in the house was like anyone's first time, in all honesty. You know, new house, new sounds, new neighborhood. You don't know where you're at. Everything looks different in the different shades of light. But we returned home from going out to eat at McDonald's. This was on a Friday. My mom got paid from her job. And she decided, with the new house, let's go ahead and celebrate. Our life's finally getting good. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. And so we went out to eat. We went to Walmart, got some groceries, and we came back home. It was roughly 10 o'clock at night. When we got home, we brought in the groceries. We put everything away. And at that point, I just decided I was going to go to my room. For anybody who knows me, I am a homebody. I am somebody who likes my privacy, and I'm like somebody who likes to just be in the quiet, serene comforts of their home. Unfortunately, wasn't what I was expecting when I went to my room to relax for the rest of the night. I heard something that sounded like somebody walking in the attic. Now, to give you a layout of the attic, it's not large enough for an adult, man or woman, to stand up. So you're kind of crouched in this weird crouching motion. And it didn't have a floor. It wasn't a finished attic. It was pretty much like an old school attic with the slats in the floor, probably about 2 foot apart. I don't know. I mean, I'm not good with measurements. and eyeballing something, but I would say probably about 2 feet apart, and of course insulation in between each. And I mean, if you stepped into the insulation, you went through the ceiling there. So how do I want to put this? So there was enough slats that went all the way across the floor, all the way across the house. The attic was pretty much the length of the house. Now, there was a way into the attic from my bedroom, the only way into the attic. Essentially, it was in the ceiling, and it was what they called a ceiling crawl space. It was about the same size of a crawl space outside, but it was inside of a room in my attic, or in my closet, to the attic. I was 13 at the time, and it kind of scared me because, I remember my mom putting the key into the door and unlocking it, but we're in this new neighborhood, and it legitimately sounded like somebody was in the attic. So I decided to slink out of my room and ran to my mother and told her, "Hey, I think someone is in the house, better part in the attic." She kind of gave me this puzzled look of like, "Why do you think that?" And I'm like, "Just listen." So we were quiet. And you could hear the definite sounds of somebody walking. So we sat and listened, and these were very distinct sounds of heel to floor, like almost like stereotypical old Western boot to floor sounds, to give you a picture. She started to freak out because we were in a new house in a new neighborhood. Like I stated, some of the neighbors were not happy that lower income housing was being added to the area. So she thought someone broke in, and that they were going to try to scare us off type thing. Effectively, how do I want to put this? Effectively trying to get rid of, thinking that we were going to be problems. So at this point, we decided to start checking all the windows. I took one side of the house, she took the other. We were running room to room, checking all the windows because we knew the doors were locked, like I said, and without forced entry, the only way was through the windows. After checking, we both came back. All the windows were locked. We both looked at the living room and was uncertain of what to do exactly because the door was locked, all the windows were locked. There was no forced entry into the house. There was two doors into the house, one in the living room and then one in the kitchen. It literally was like 15 feet apart. Stupid, in all honesty, but whatever. Both of those were locked though, so we after about a 15-minute discussion decided that we have to call the cops. There's somebody in the attic because we expected it just to stop. We called the cops, police department. We dialed 911. They arrived in 30 minutes, which is you're in the bad area of town. So police response times are pretty shitty, in all honesty. Sad to say. They arrived within 30 minutes. There was 2 police officers, and of course 2 others show up afterwards. The skinniest of the 2 decided he was going to go into the attic, and he searched up there for about 15 minutes as the other officer was interviewing us. Why do you think somebody's in the attic? What did you hear? The words. So as he was in the attic checking, we could hear him visibly walking across the slats, and it sounded exactly the same as before. So I was like, dead certain somebody was up there. After 15 minutes, he came down and explained there was nothing up there. And as we started talking to him, and the other officer, of course, thanked them for coming out, blah, 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 this stuff like that. We explained to him his new house, so probably it was just noise. The noise started again. And this time, both cops kind of looked up to the ceiling. Like, really? And then, of course, their faces, both of them faced each other, looked at each other, and they looked concerned, like, what the hell? They began talking. They kind of pulled each other off to the side. They began talking. I could hear one slightly asking about, did you search everywhere? Was there nooks, crannies, stuff like that? And the other officer, they went up there. He said, yeah, man, I checked everywhere. But you know what? Let me go back up again. Let me just double check. Let me be 100% certain. He excuses himself once again, and he was up there for roughly 30 minutes this time. At this call time, taking the call almost at an hour mark. He was at 45 minutes between that, and then, it took him some time to get out there. We're over an hour now. He comes back down, covered in sweat. This is in the heat of Midwest weather, sweating pretty much profusely, and covered in foam insulation. And he's like, man, there's no one up there. And of course, they come back to the front room, laughing, and they kind of were like a little relieved. And the other officers was like, boy, that sounded like somebody was really up there walking. They gave us a business card with their phone number on it. Of course, they gave us a case number and just told us to call again if anything else happens. As they were walking out, they stopped because the noise had returned. The officer, at this time, he just, what I would assume was the veteran officer, the one that did not go up there, he just turns around and he's like, look, I understand this is a new house for you guys. It was just built. He states along the lines of, it's probably the house settling. And it's probably causing a noise like that because the wood's expanding. He was given some, insight of it. Obviously, it was all BS. But he was trying to bring us to ease and not realize of what he had. I don't know how to put it. It's weird. I mean, it sounds like he's just being a dick, but he really wasn't. I think he was just trying to calm us down and just say, hey, look, we acknowledge something weird's going on, but we're going to give you some insight to stop thinking about it. So he was super nice about that, and just claimed that more than likely the wood was expanding, which I don't know. I mean, I'm not a handyman by at all, but I'm under the impression that wood, I thought, only expands like in. I guess maybe it is the heat. It does expand. Maybe so. So maybe he was onto something. But he said his piece and then they left essentially. And the odd part was they were parked outside of our house for probably 45 minutes to an hour afterwards, and they were talking. You could tell they were talking to each other. So I think they might have been spooked by the noises, in all honesty. I mean, it's hard to admit whenever you're somebody who's looking at things logically that when you come into this, there's no explanation for it. For the rest of the night, though, we could hear the walking noises. It sounded like someone was pacing back and forth with heavy heel steps. Like, definite heavy heel steps. Like, the heel was the first thing coming down, almost like the old Western cowboy boots. You know how if you look at the West, the old boots like that, they all have a pretty thick heel to them. That's kind of what it sounded like. Now, that is the first part of my experience of the paranormal. I understand it was short, but I kind of want to drag this out into a little series. I do believe, though, with everything that was going on, that this story was not super intense. It's nothing like what we see in the movies, of course. But I do believe that something has been following me almost my entire life, and this is just the first encounter, and my stories will increase in activity. But I do just want to share what I think might have happened. We are months to a year out from my father's passing. We were poor. We couldn't express our feelings like normal people. We didn't know how, and we couldn't afford counseling. So there was no outlet to get rid of this anger, sadness, and everything in between, and kept it bottled up inside of us. And my family was large. It was myself and 5 siblings, and my mother, who were all grieving, and none of us got to say goodbye. None of us got to do anything like that. And we were raised by my dad. He was in the United States Marine Corps. That you kind of kept your emotions in check, and you kind of, you didn't wear your heart on your sleeve like they produce now. People like, oh, it's normal for you to do that. Back then, he found that as a source of not negativity, but weakness. And he trained us to keep it bottled up inside, and that is what we did. And with the number of people in our home bottling up depression, fear, anxiety, sadness, I believe it caused a negative energy to release or come out, drawn to us, and bring this entity into our lives and into my home. Whether you believe that or not, that is up to you. This may not even be a case of paranormal. It could be something else, but we could discuss that in the comments section down below, as I would love to hear what you think. Now, with this being the first video in the series, I hope you enjoyed listening to this narration, and I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you very soon. As always, if you are new to the channel, please leave a like or dislike, depending on how you feel about this video, and please subscribe if you're not, as it is free entertainment, and I will have many more stories like this. As I stated, my video narrations will go up Monday, Wednesday, Fridays for the foreseeable future, and something may change that, but as of right now, that is where I plan to upload and everything. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Later.